How does Spravato work? It's a good question. Glad you asked it. Spravato works. Before we talk about how it works, we have to talk about glutamate. Glutamate is an activating neurotransmitter in the body. Glutamate is the most common neurotransmitter in the body. And you know what glutamate breaks down into? Glutamate is the precursor of GABA. GABA is the most common inhibitory neurotransmitter in the body. Go figure. The most activating neurotransmitter breaks down into the most calming or relaxing neurotransmitter, GABA. That's what Valium, that's what Klonopin, that's what Xanax, that's what Ativan, that's what Librium stimulates. Alcohol stimulates. Now, what activates GABA? I'll tell you, sugar. Sugar increases GABA. Sugar increases glutamic acid. It's activating and it's toxic. You know what else increases glutamic acid? PCP. Remember that? Angel dust? Activating, agitation, overstimulation. Glutamic acid is stimulated and raised by PCP, phenylcyclovine, angel dust. They smoked it. I remember in the 80s, I was in an emergency room. I was dealing with that. People were like super strength, fighting with everyone. Yeah, too much glutamate. Activating. High sugar diet increases glutamate activity and it becomes toxic. What else? GHB, gamma hydroxybutyrate, increases glutamate. That's Scoop or GHB or liquid ecstasy. I did that whole talk on GHB. But I thought that drug was sedating in the video. It was, but at lower doses, its glutamatergic effects, the glutamic acid effects, are activating, make you like music, make you sexual, make you less anxious, make you confident, make sex better, make you more socially disinhibited, more open socially, more confident socially. So that's what, everything is a continuum. You can initially stimulate glutamic acid and you're very activated and up and positive stimuli, but if you too much, it becomes a disaster and it's neurotoxic and it's devastating. It causes diseases. Too much glutamate can cause Alzheimer's, Huntington's disease, Parkinson's disease, Amylotropic lateral sclerosis. That's the Stephen Hawking's disease where your muscles are, they go dead and you sort of eventually can't walk, can't talk, and you're just in a wheelchair confined. I mean, who had that? Lou Gehrig. All right, you're still with me. Glutamate is the most activating neurotransmitter in the body. It breaks down into GABA, which is inhibitory. So now, how about this? Do you know diet can decrease glutamate? A protein diet decreases glutamate. A high sugar diet increases glutamate, and glutamate at high levels can be toxic, like in the disease states we talked about. Spravato blocks one of the 3 receptors for glutamic acid, which is glutamate. What are they? The NMDA receptor, which is N-methyl D-aspartate receptor, which is a glutamate receptor. There's 2 others, the AMPA and the Kainate. So Spravato blocks that NMDA receptor, but there's another drug which may help in depression, and I use it in depression, Riluzole, for amylotropic lateral sclerosis, which prevents the release of glutamic acid. It's one and the same, and it sucks more of it up, so it can't be used. Well, that's all really interesting. It sounds, gee, just lower glutamate and you'll be fine. It's not so simple. It's much more complicated. It's much more involved. There are other drugs, for example, that Namenda for Alzheimer's, that blocks that NMDA receptor, but it doesn't really help in depression. Lamictal helps in depression, and it blocks the release of glutamate. The major effect of Spravato is to postsynaptically block that glutamate receptor. So that's how it works. There's some issues with Spravato, that long-term use may, this is not definitive, may become addicting and it may have neurotoxic effects. I don't know that for a fact. Maybe I've read some things on it. Maybe. So after about a year, maybe if you block that receptor too much, it's not good. I don't know. But it's interesting, isn't it? What's going on? That Spravato happens to be a mixture. It's a mixture of the left and the right of ketamine. They took away the right and you get esketamine. It's 4 times as potent as the R version at blocking the glutamate receptor, but the best mixture is the IV infusion of ketamine. I think that's more effective, actually. The problem with it is it's not legal. It's not FDA approved. It's legal, I guess, for you to use it, but it's out of indication. That's a better way to put it. So I only use intranasal because that's indicated for depression. One thing interesting about this ketamine, nothing works quicker. It's something called plasticity. It changes the structure, the development, and the interconnection between neurons quicker than anything out there. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors could take 6 weeks, 2 months. This works in hours. So if you have an acutely suicidal patient or depressed patient, use the ketamine. I don't know if anything works better. And the IV infusion works the best, but it's not indicated that way. And you could run into problems. When you give ketamine or esketamine, people dissociate. They're out-of-body experiences. It's like memory blackouts. You're talking to someone else. They feel unreal. They hallucinate. They can see the floor moving. It lowers blood pressure. They get dizzy and they fall. And they can really get disorganized and make no sense. So you have to watch them in the office for 2 hours because it's really dangerous. I mean, I've gotten it down to, it kicks in 15 minutes. And from that point to an hour and 15 minutes later, they've got to be sitting and they're kind of out of it. So you need to watch them for 2 hours. You really do. There's no shortcuts to that. One thing about esketamine is it's a pretty long half-life, so the effects can last for, 3 to 5 days, up to a week. So that's good. We usually do it 3 times a week for a couple weeks, 2 weeks, and then twice a week for 2 weeks, and then once a week for 2 weeks, and then end it. But some people need maintenance with that esketamine. When I did anesthesia for a long time, I was going to be an anesthesiologist, and I remember them telling me, we use this ketamine to induce anesthesia because it blocks pain. So it can be a good pain treatment. And it sort of puts people in twilight. They're out of it, and it can induce a state where you can minimize pain, and they're a little bit out of it, so they don't know what's going on. And it doesn't suppress the respiratory system. So there's very few things out there that can sort of knock someone out without suppressing the respiratory system. And that's why ketamine was used and still is in operating rooms throughout the United States and in dental offices. They use ketamine injections to sort of knock people out and so they don't remember, but they still breathe. And it's used as an anesthetic. Anything else going on with ketamine? That's about what I wanted to say. I appreciate likes. I appreciate subscribing and comments. Oh, and to the one person who said that I think there's a drug for everything, no, I don't. I just wish there were. Bye.